Okay, now we need to talk about how Overwatch 2 specifically, uh, creates an experience in which it is designed for you to blame your team. And for a lot of people in the comments, I have seen multiple times that the answer to a lot of the things that I'm saying are problems by design of the game are to tell me, well, it's a team game. You're supposed to rely on your team. It's like, right, but every time you say that, that means that blaming your team is 100% justifiable, right? Overwatch 1, you had individual agency in which you had tools to solve certain problems you'd find in the game, certain situations where you felt like you could outplay the situation. And then after that, then you built upon that to say, well, now how do all six people use that individual agency as a team cohesively to win the game? You always had your individual agency, but you also had team play. In Overwatch 2, you are so dependent on your team that you can't win certain situations without them. What's the answer to a super buff tank that's diving on you as Ana in the back line when you're by yourself? Get your own super buff tank or teammates to help you. Like, we, that's what I mean in the sense that like you don't have an answer to these problems anymore. You could sleep Doomfist, nade him, and hit every single shot, and Doomfist could still kill you. So by design, you are then influenced to say, well, it is not my fault. My team should have been there for me. And you're not wrong, but that's a failure by design. Now, to show you how design influences how you feel about things or influences like what you do, I'm going to talk about doors. Because doors is the easiest design in the world where you think to yourself, it's a door. How complicated could it be? But that's the beauty of design. You are influenced by design to do a certain action without you realizing it. Now, if you look at this and you look at a door handle that's for the most part horizontal, what's your first instinct for that door handle? Normally, for most people, if you see a door handle that is horizontal, you want to push it, right? But if you see a door handle that's vertical, what do you want to do? You want to pull it, right? But then there's the problem of, well, this one's vertical on the outside and on the inside, but you can't pull both ways. So then you have a door handle like this. Now you know if you're on the outside, you need to pull that handle. And if you're on the inside, you have to push that handle. But this is with an instance with uh, a glass door. So you can visually see which side, and it's a double door. So you know which side the hinge is on. So you know which side to stand on for the push door, right? But to get it even farther, then you have doors like this. What do you do? Do you push? Do you pull? Do you push or pull from the outside? Like, what do you do? Right? Now, this is the part where design I get so worked up about because it's very frustrating. I'm like, you can make things better. And sometimes there's limitations and you can't. But something like this just frustrates the crap out of me because as a designer, I'm like, why did you make it this way? Like, was this really the best option that you had? So then you have other doors like this, right? This one is clearly a push door and you have to push to go outside. But however, what side is the hinge on? Let's say you go from the middle and then all of a sudden you find yourself leaning one way. Okay, not the greatest, but what happens if you accidentally go on like on the right side and the hinge is on the left, right? You push and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, it's really difficult." So how do you make this one even better? You put the push on one side specifically. Now, even though you can't see the hinges, you know exactly which way to push on that door. But this wasn't anything you've ever thought about before, and you never had to think about it. And if you started pushing on a lot of people, if they had a door like this, they'd push and be like, "Oh, I'm so dumb. I didn't. The hinge is on this side. I was pushing on this side. I should have been. I'm just an idiot or something." But it's like, but you're not. It's a fault of the design. The design has then influenced you to not know exactly what you should be doing, right? But this teaches you without you even knowing it, which way to push on the door, which way is the best way to do it. This is the reason why design influences everything that we do. And there's small changes that you don't even realize are part of your everyday life that we as designers make to make things easier. And this is why too, like, I critique Overwatch and It's not to say that Overwatch is a bad game. It's not. It really isn't. It's still one of the best games and best hero shooters ever created and on the market today. But that isn't to say that it's perfect. That isn't to say that we can't make it better. Me critiquing Overwatch isn't to say it's a crappy game. It's to say let's iterate on it and make it even better because that's what I love to do. I love to take something and say, hey, this was a great idea, but what can we do to improve upon it? What can we do to take it up to the next level? Right. So in Overwatch, now that we understand doors and how design influences everything, like let's talk about it as in like Overwatch 2, right? Uh Overwatch, like I said with the Doom example, is in Overwatch 1, you could outplay your situation with tanks. Tanks didn't hard counter you to the point that you couldn't beat them. They had obvious weaknesses in which you could do something about it. Uh, Overwatch 2, they've removed that, and now if you don't have the perfect team synergy, you have less individual agency over your games. And it is then reliant on the fact that you need your team to bail you out of certain situations. And when we design abilities, we should be designing them in the way that you feel like you could have done something better, right? You feel like you could have outplayed that situation, which in my other videos about like Roadhog, giving him the trap didn't make sense because of the fact that his problem wasn't being able to one shot too quickly, but the problem wasn't being able to tank more damage. His problem was he didn't have a counterplay to the sleep and the nade. And it's not about giving him something like a cleanse, a personal cleanse. Like, let's say you kept his one shot, but you removed the trap and you just gave him a press E to cleanse. Well, that would solve his problem. But then you just basically saying like Anna landed her shots and then Roadhog presses E and that's that. That's not that's not really fun. That's not enjoyable. It's a band-aid solution, and both sides, or at least like Anna then feels like, well, I'm not rewarded for the thing that I did. Now, however, let's say that like Winston's bubble, you gave Roadhog an ability that allowed him to predict the Ana nade and predict the Ana sleep and then counter it, right? Similar to Genji's deflect, right? Genji's deflect is a predictive ability. You want to use it when you predict somebody is about to do something. And if you predict wrong, you are then punished for it. If Roadhog then had a predictive ability, like a shield or a deflect or something along those lines, and I'm not saying exactly, I'm saying like mechanically. If they had something along those lines, you would then give them the tool to be able to outplay their difficult scenario. This is good counterplay. This is good game design because simply just saying press E to undo, like with Suzu, is not good game design. You want to give players the tools in which they felt like they had an opportunity to do something, but also on the other end, those players then felt like, they outplayed me in that scenario. They played that well. This is why a lot of my videos, I'm not talking about buffing or nerfing. That's a terrible idea. I'm talking about design and game feel and perception of fairness of how that all plays out. Uh, because one of the core parts of game design is making sure that after you die, after you lose, after you fail at anything, that you blame yourself, that losing is fun because in games it needs to be. If losing isn't fun and you're not blaming yourself, you're going to put the game down. You're not going to play. An excellent example is Mario. Okay, now there's a lot of videos and articles and stuff on Mario and his movement and game feel, and I highly recommend if you haven't seen anything on that and you're curious to like look those things up because Mario's movement was the first lesson that game developers ever had in creating game feel, creating movement that feels good. Now, in Mario, when you press jump, you don't just jump a physical height and jump back down. You tap the button and you jump little. You press and hold the button and you can stay up in the air a little bit longer and then come back down. But also, when you're in the air, unlike real life, you have control to be able to jump and still move and control where you are in the air by a little bit. It's not exact, but it's enough to influence how you feel in terms of feeling like you had control over your situation. Now, this is important because of the fact that because the controls are so good and they're so tight and they feel so good, this is why when I'm talking about game feel, I'm talking about this. I'm talking about the tactile sensation you sort of get when you press a button and feel the reaction in the game. Does something feel powerful? Does something feel light? Does something feel scary? Does something feel heavy? Like these are all things that you can feel without feeling, if that makes sense. So, because the controls in Mario are so tight and they're so good, and they've been so good for years, Mario is a brilliant design in the sense that a lot of the times when you die in Mario games, you want to play again. You want to get back up and try that again because of the fact that after you died, you're not like, oh, this game sucks. Like, I can't believe I was robbed. You say, damn, I could have played that better. And you get back into it. This is why, to me, losing should be fun. And in Overwatch, it's not as fun as it could be. And it should be fun because you want to limit those types of uh, interactions with the game. And super buffing tanks and not giving players the ability to outplay the tanks and not giving tanks the ability to outplay their difficult scenarios created situations where you blame your team for not having the right heroes, you blame your team for misplaying, uh, and you frequently blame the game for the fact that you don't have the tools to fully succeed in the sort of challenges the game has set up for you. Now, we can make those, we can make them better, and that's what my videos are talking about. I'm not talking about nerfing supports, I'm talking about giving them the tools in which to outplay their situation. I don't want to buff Doomfist to be able to endure so much damage that he could eat a sleep and a nade and still survive. I want to give him some sort of tool to outplay that scenario in which it's not a reactive ability, but a predictive ability or a proactive ability that allows him to outplay the person in front of him. All of what I'm talking about is is trying to redesign the problematic abilities in Overwatch, which create frustration. Suzu creates frustration, Lamp creates frustration, Life Grip creates frustration. However, we can create and design better abilities that give those characters more control over their games because of the fact that, let's face it, at the end of the day, Overwatch is mostly about securing kills in order to win games more than anything else. So I'd rather see characters and heroes have abilities which allow them to be proactive in that rather than just reactive and denying, because denying isn't fun. But everybody enjoys having a good play where they felt like, oh, I'm responsible for the fact that that person, that person is now dead. That gave us the advantage. Uh, so everything I'm talking about here is the ultimate goal of mine is to make losing fun in Overwatch. Because right now I don't think it is. I don't think that even right now it's gotten so bad that even winning sometimes isn't fun for me. Uh, I don't enjoy it as much as I used to. And it's because of the fact that, to me, the Overwatch team has sort of a survivorship bias where we keep buffing the areas we don't need to be buffing. I would much rather see tanks in Overwatch experimented by having much lower health and just super short cooldowns. So that way they do less damage. They might do less. Oh, and get rid of the DPS passive and nerf healing across the board. Uh, Tanks do less damage as quickly as DPS, but they get to use their abilities more often. That, to me, and they have less health, so you can outplay them if they fuck up. But they have uh, that to me could be a fun trade off where I feel like, oh, okay, like I get to use my abilities a lot more often as a tank because using abilities is fun. But even when I land those abilities, it's going to take me a couple extra shots than it would for, like, let's say, a DPS. And a DPS can have those less shots that it takes, but also you're a squishy glass cannon that can die a lot easier. So I hope this better helps illustrate and understand what I'm getting at in terms of like my videos, because a lot of people seem to think like, oh, still, you're a tracer main. You just want DPS to be strong. You just want to nerf supports on the ground. Like, no, no. As with tanks and as with supports and as with any characters, the same with Sombra and everybody else. I want to give players choice. I want to make them feel like there was counterplay. I want them to make them feel like they had the ability to win the game, win every game. I want to make sure that when you lose, you are having fun. That is my ultimate goal as a game designer. I want to make sure that losing is still almost as much fun, if not as much fun as winning. Because I know for me personally, when I lose a game and it's a close game and it's a fun game, I don't mind losing. What I don't like is getting in situations when scenarios where I am I feel hijacked by the fact that it's a team game and it's so forced to be a team game now that if my Doomfist dives in and dies 20 times and the enemy tank only dies twice, I was never gonna win that game. I never had the tools to win that game. And currently, in its current state, Overwatch and Overwatch 2 influences you to blame your team. And you know what? Like, a lot of times you're not wrong. I'm not saying it's helpful in terms of getting better and improving at the game, but I'm saying just like when you know, push on a pull door and pull on a push door and push on the wrong side of a door handle, sure, like you could try and learn and get better to do it the next time, but also at the end of the day, part of the design is the reason why you are sometimes influenced to blame your team. And I just think that we can do better. So me making videos isn't to say Overwatch is a shit game. It's not. There's so many great things about it, but it could be better. And I would hope that we all want it to be better. And this is just my way of hopefully influencing somebody somewhere with the right power and the right ability to do so to maybe make some of these changes. I don't know. I don't know. We'll find out.